what we're going to have speaking on, I don't know, or just get it out and have it handy, so you can hand it to me. There we go. I'm just trying to have everybody speak to their time. And the sound man is setting up as fast as he can. Yes. Yes. Can I get an act up? We can do our introductions before the mic. Oh, that's a good idea. Okay. As you first and foremost, we know our water is in there, comes from there, and needs all of our protection. So Mr. Enright has been very gracious to come and meet with us in answer to our letter, and he said he considers this a fact-finding mission.
Pleased to be here, and committed to Bridget. I will be back several times if necessary and work with you on this situation. So thank you all.
I'm Diane DeVries. I'm retired. I've been here about 25 years. Thank you. And I'm concerned with the quality of the drinking water and having enough drinking water and what the dairy might mean about those issues.
Our main concerns are have to do with health, the potential health risks that are involved with the dairy. Our children are ages 8 to 5.5 months. So that makes us concerned, especially with the things that my husband has seen with respiratory problems and things with children already on the west side due to GMOs. You know, any sort of big agricultural production makes us nervous, since he's already kind of witnessed some of that. So we're concerned about the groundwater and the health risks, mostly.
I have the same concerns everyone does here, all of the same concerns. And my playground is the ocean. I teach a water exercise class in front of the Wild High. So I'm in the ocean all the time. I'm very concerned about our water quality.
As a young child, I grew up on a dairy with my grandma and grandpa. And then as an adult, my husband and I bought a piece of property out in the countryside, and there was a dairy approximately 2 miles away. Fly comes to visit me. Anyway, what would happen is, because it was in Washington, there weren't any flies during the winter. But come the first sunny day, which aren't very many in Seattle area, we would have a fly hatch. And when the fly hatches hit, you didn't get the barbecue ready. You got your long sleeve shirt on. You got your long pants on. You put on your socks and your tennis shoes or boots. And then you went outside to barbecue. I have got some other facts for you from 3 sources. The Department of Health of Illinois has quite a big report. The University of Florida, and then the Hawaiian Invasive Species Council also has fly information. Okay. Illinois Department of Health states in their report on biting flies that flies can fly 10 miles. I know other people have told me 5 miles, but I believe Department of Health. Each fly has 30 blood meals a day. Flies have serrated mouths, and they lacerate the skin and inject an anticoagulant containing saliva. That's how they become a vector of disease. Biting flies transmit debilitating diseases to millions of people worldwide. The diseases affecting young children are pink eye and impetigo. Biting flies often attack the ankles, inflicting sharp, stabbing pain. It goes on to say that the mesh of standard household screens is not fine enough to keep out the tiniest biting flies and should be replaced with a finer mesh where these flies are a problem. Then it goes on to say DEET, which we all don't want to wear anyway, repellent, has been found to be less effective against some biting flies. So it might be good for mosquitoes, not so much for the biting flies. Biting flies can produce severe allergic reactions, death has been reported from allergic reactions to the Department of Health in Illinois. To combat biting flies, avoid areas inhabited by the flies. Thank you, Department of Health. Avoid peak biting times. And peak biting times are in the morning and about barbecue time in the evening. Then they say, wear heavy-duty, light-colored clothing, not dark clothing. They like it too much. Include long sleeves, long pants, and hats with netting that covers the head like bee bonnets. Okay, now that's Illinois. The University of Florida. Eggs are laid in masses ranging from 100 to 1,000 eggs. Eggs hatch in 5 to 7 days, depending on the weather conditions. Adult fly lifespan is 30 to 60 days. It's not uncommon to see as many as 100 flies on an animal at one time. It's actually really bad for the animals. Currently, there are no adequate means for managing populations. This is the University of Florida. The use of insecticides is generally thought of as economically unfeasible. Granular insecticides were applied to the water in the 1950s, but environmental effects were eventually considered. Then the next reference I have here is the Hawaiian Invasive Species Council, which is an interdepartmental collaboration comprised of the Departments of Land and Natural Resources, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Health, Transportation, and Business and Economic and Tourism, and the University of Hawaii. So their report on biting flies says, the introduction and establishment of any one of these pests could cause severe harm to the Hawaii's tourist-based economy, severely impacting Hawaii's native and non-native fauna, and forever change the way people live in the islands. They also say biting flies are flies that attack man and other animals. Black flies are vicious biters and serious pests in some parts of the U.S. They attack livestock and can cause death to livestock and humans. I found on another website, it was a website for getting rid of flies, biting flies, and I just loved this quote. Getting rid of flies after they have hatched and built up a tremendous population is like bailing out a sinking boat with a teaspoon. So let's not get any flies.
My name again is Irene Sherman, but I also want to speak with you as a professional and express my concern about impetigo as it would affect our young children. You may or may not know that in the small town of Kaloa, we have every day over 457 children attending school. Impetigo is a skin infection. A child gets impetigo from a number of ways, but one of them are those nasty biting flies that Eileen spoke about. And once the child is bitten, and please join me in picturing children cooped up inside all day because they can't go out, or being told, having their parents told they must come to school with long pants, long sleeves, and the bee bonnets, to protect them as they go out to play. Personally, from my own 30-plus years experience working in schools, I don't think so. I just don't think that's going to happen. So, after a child is bitten, they will develop some very uncomfortable, itchy, and painful red sores, especially around the nose and mouth. And then naturally they're going to want to scratch those, and they will rupture and ooze. And as the child touches their face and then touches other parts of their own body, the infection spreads. And then, of course, as they play with other children and they have the skin-to-skin contact, other children become infected. For whatever reason, and I am not a medical professional, so I can't tell you why, but for whatever reason, impetigo affects young children the most. And when I gave you that number of over 457 children, I'm talking about elementary and preschool age children. It spreads very rapidly in schools, and the only real remedy is antibiotic. And there is another whole issue, which I don't feel I am qualified to speak to, but many medical professionals believe that it is very harmful to give young children antibiotics. So my personal concern and my professional concern is that by allowing the dairy in this particular location, that we are endangering our children, the children of our community. And Mr. Enright, and I've given you some photographs of what impetigo does look like on children's faces. And I want to share with you, when I was an acting superintendent, every year principals would want to talk with me, and they'd say, you know, the probationary period is ending for this teacher, and I just don't know what to do. I have to either tenure them or I have to release them. And I want to be fair, and I just don't know, and da-da-da, what should I do? And I'd look at them and say, well, only you can make that decision since you've worked with them, but ask yourself this: would you want your child or your grandchild to be taught by that teacher? And so, Mr. Enright and Ms. Gardner, I ask you, when you are at the point of making a decision whether to support Mahalapu as the location for this dairy, please ask yourselves, would you want your child or your grandchild to look like this? Thank you.
I'm Ellen Ibata. I was born and raised in Koloa, and I was a teacher. My main concerns are all the health issues that will come with the dairy.
That millions of gallons of effluent and manure sludge will need to be pumped when storms and hurricanes approach. And this is a process that
takes 4 days, they say. Everyone knows that we do not have the luxury of 4 days' notice of a direct hit. There were at least 15 serious storms and hurricanes that we were warned to prepare for this past hurricane season. 15 times 4 days, they would have spent 2 months pumping. And their plan doesn't include backup generators. It's very possible that we may be looking at a spill of millions of gallons of effluent and sludge on top of the daily waste already on the ground. So on behalf of all concerned, I humbly request that you do everything possible to protect us from this tragedy. Thank you.
Well, you know, as a way of context, when I was a much younger man, because, you know, we get older, it's hard to figure out where that begins and ends. You know, I used to body surf at shipwrecks before Hyatt was over there, and, you know, before a lot of that, the coastline and the subdivisions that are here today were there. And so, you know, I've always valued that coastline. And I've lived here in the county. You know, I've worked for the sugar companies in the past. I've spent time here. So I knew what that coastline looked like, and I knew what the valley looked like, and I've looked at it on enough maps, enough planning instruments for agriculture. But growing up with Carl, you know, when we got up and with Chuck, and, you know, they're sharing their perspective, and then we go up and look at it. You look at it in a different way. And, you know, as an Aggie, I'm usually looking for agricultural development now too. But being up there looking at it as an environmentalist, which is what I was asked to do, I could see the points that they were making. So, again, you know, what's being asked of me by the governor, by your governor and my governor, is scientific inquiry. And I'll do just that, because that's my charge. But I've been working with Ulupono from when Pierre Midyar first proposed the idea that he wanted to start working on dairies. You know, Ulupono is backstopped by Pierre Midyar's $17 billion. And it was work that when he came home, he sold eBay and brought his money back to the state. He decided that he wanted to do some work on food security issues, food sustainability issues in the state. And what they decided to work on was the protein question. You know, we can easily gear up and grow vegetables and fruit in this state if the price point's correct. The reason we don't do more is because it's hard to make it work economically and compete with economies of scale elsewhere in the world. But Pierre felt that that protein question could be answered, and he decided that what they wanted to look at, what he wanted Ulupono to look at, was putting a dairy in every county. So the counties were self-sufficient in milk. It was one of the places he wanted to start. So I've been working with the individuals that he's retained at Ulupono over that course of time on different issues, but not, I'm leaving a pregnant pause, on site selection. You know, we don't get into that level of interaction. You know, that's their business model. So that's what they were doing. They decided on Kauai as the first place to start. And Ulupono did negotiations with Grove Farm to finalize on that site where they're at. I do not know what those negotiations, where they started. I know where they ended, which is why we're in this room. I understand they were long and contentious. And that was not where Ulupono wanted to go initially, is my understanding. And now I'll find out. Even though this isn't work that the department's historically done, weighing in at this level, the governor's asked me to do just that. So I'll take the information that you've all presented. Thank you very much. And the governor's asked me to do scientific inquiry. He's asked me to take a look at it, find out, you know, if in fact these critiques hold, and to weigh back in with Ulupono. It is my understanding, and it still holds today, that Ulupono won't do anything, a foundational premise that isn't environmentally sound. So this critique holds up. My expertise to tell you where we're at and what my discussions with Ulupono are like, and we'll take it from there.
I think you've been presented with science, and I find that very impressive. I think there's not a worse place that could have been picked to put this dairy, and to me, that's evident. I think there are other places it could be put on Kauai where it does not affect the water, it does not affect a close-by community. This is not people saying, oh, not in my backyard. They're concerned about environmental factors. We are very committed and determined on this issue.
The people who are creating the level of contamination are the very ones who are paying those people. So the youth of our community. So these are people who have a lot of experience. So I applaud Kaloa and Poipu for what they've done and for this particular group, and it's a blessing. I want to ask you, did you learn anything today that you didn't expect to, that you didn't know before?
I've heard your concerns. You are, if there were groups like this that were informed around issues that were concerns in their communities statewide, it would be a different state. So I commend you all for the organization, the hard work, and the research you put into this presentation.
for more or better cooperation with the state. I do want you to know that we did offer to meet with Hawaii Dairy Farms and the Lupono. Our lawyer even has asked informally, because he knows people who are close to Steve Case and Pierre, and he's asked and said, why don't we put the principals in a room and let them sit down and, you know, at least let them hear what these people have to say, because we sat out here and listened to them, and we listened to them, you know, misstate the rainfall level, misstate the soil type, talk about a permit that they had that doesn't exist, and that didn't get us off on the greatest footing. And then when we learned how much harm 699 cows can really do to our way of life, our whole community, our children, our health. Since the governor has commissioned you to do this, we're very, very appreciative. Really, we are. I want to apologize, Billy Kahola, Mickey wanted to be here tonight to talk about the sustenance fishing, the limu gathering, the okihi gathering that goes on in the valley. We still use the valley for native Hawaiian medicinal plants. They still gather water in there from the aquifers upstream that they feel are health related. And they still make pilgrimages in there for various festivals and harvest times and visit the heiaus in there. So that's a very historic part of this whole area. And I just want to thank everybody again for coming. And please, a real big kukua to the governor that we are actually going to get the state to help us. Thank you. And
I want to publicly acknowledge Bridget. Yes.